Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
As much as I try to avoid a lot of mainstream media, you certainly can't avoid it because it's really everywhere, the talk around insurance. Obamacare, Medicare, and how it's affected a lot of folks, both positively and negatively. I'm not here to debate that. But as I've been exposed or at times inflicted, this information inflicted upon me, there's some things about the insurance machine that I don't think a lot of folks pay attention to. I know I certainly didn't, and things that I certainly didn't know that occurs. And really, you probably wouldn't pay attention to it unless you're directly affected by it or immediately applies to you, or you actually work in hospital environments. And one of these things is how hospitals actually get reimbursed for their services from organizations like Medicare. Today, our guest is Eileen Campbell, and she has more information and knowledge around this than anyone I've ever talked to, and really has some interesting insights because what she does is help hospitals do the things that are necessary to make sure that those reimbursements come through and they're doing the right things that won't let those reimbursements backslide on them. So this is some really, really interesting information, especially if you want to see behind the scenes on how things get done. And I'm not just talking about your medical care. I'm talking about the way that you're actually treated and the attention that's paid to you and folks that are around you and mean a lot to you and your family when they are staying in a hospital. So stick around. We'll be right back with Eileen Campbell.
Don't miss a thing. Listen to and download past episodes, get show notes, resource lists, and leave feedback at influencersradio.com.
And we are back on Influencers Radio, and today we are going to get some information that I think really is going to be important and probably something that a lot of us don't think about. And even though this is really about changes and the things that are occurring in hospitals today and in the whole medical profession, it also affects us as patients. So we're aware of what's going on in the background, and we're also aware of some of the reasons that maybe hospitals are doing what they're doing and how they're changing the way that they are interacting with people. So it really is, I think, it really is going to be applicable to anyone that is both in the hospital or medical field, but also people that if you or loved ones are visiting hospitals, it's going to give you some information to keep in the back of your head as you make those visits and go through that process. So today's guest is Eileen Campbell, and Eileen is the go-to authority in helping hospitals stopping the backsliding, and we'll define what backsliding is, on patient satisfaction scores. A lot of you may not even have realized that there's such a thing as patient satisfaction scores, but there are, and it's a really big deal, especially since it can affect hospitals' bottom line. It can actually affect hospitals' cash flow. And I'm really interested to hear about that. Eileen, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jack.
Well, you know what? I was looking at this and I was researching this. I actually came up with some really fascinating information that I never realized happened in the other side of hospital visits or the hospital administration that I think most people aren't aware of. But hospitals are facing a big issue with their cash flow or reimbursements, particularly from Medicare, based on these satisfaction scores of patients. All right. So I want to talk about that because it's important also for their brand and their image, but when it actually hits their bottom line directly. Can you explain to us what these satisfaction scores are and how they can affect a hospital's bottom line?
Sure, Jack. The patient satisfaction scores are something that happen when a patient leaves the hospital. Randomly, a patient will receive a survey to describe how their experience was. And this is not about the quality of care that they received. It's about their experience. And those hospitals are very excited to see that patients have positive experiences. Number one, because it's what we're in business to do. And number two, now the government has tied reimbursement to high levels of patient satisfaction. So the government is almost advocating out there to make sure that we as an industry are doing and meeting our mission to take care of that patient.
So it's not tied to, hey, they cured me or they fixed my broken leg or anything like that. It's not tied to the outcome of their actual their care, their prescription. It's their experience as if their interaction with the hospital staff or how they were treated or things like that. Would that be accurate?
That's absolutely accurate. The government is also has indicators for quality, but under the patient satisfaction, it's really about how the hospital perceived we were there to communicate to them, to respond to them, to educate them, how courteous we were to them, how well we listened. So it's all about how the patient perceives us in caring for them.
I just thought of something. It's putting the hospitality in the hospital.
Exactly, and it goes a little bit deeper than the hospitality is the perfect way to look at it, and then we go deeper because in order to create that in a hospital environment, it's more than just a smile. We have to have really amazing information. We have to have all of our connections together from all different disciplines to understand exactly what is going on, to have communication that's accurate and timely for the patient.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that, as I was looking at this and researching this for our conversation, is there really is two different levels of hospital and the administration and the workings of the hospital. Both, there's one that we always think about hospitals as patient care and getting people better, but there's also the business side of the hospital that a lot of people don't think about. And, putting the hospitality in hospital is certainly very, very, a shallow level of what we're talking about, but it really is two different angles. And you have the doctors and the medical staff that their core focus is on let's get people better. And sometimes that may, neglect or I don't want to say they ignore, but that's their focus. And then there has to be somebody focusing on the other side of it, on that patient experience there as well, because it's not like they're fixing cars or working on cars. They're working on people that there's more to it than just break fix. It's like you're talking about their whole experience. So when we talk about backsliding, what does that mean that it's backsliding? Is this something that's getting worse over time, or is it something that has just been put a spotlight on because that it's tied to money now?
Well, you're exactly on point, Jack. What's happening is that hospitals are aware of making the experience better for the patient, and the hospitals have been working diligently to make this happen. And they had put lots of initiatives into place, and they've seen some forward movement and the hope and the promise that their movement would stay the same and continue to improve. But what's happening now, Jack, is that the patient experiences are not always trending forward and holding. They're actually starting to go backwards, thus the term backsliding. So some of their incremental gains are starting to move in a backwards direction. And that's what I help hospitals with.
And so when I've done some research on this, from what I've seen is that, some of the symptoms of backsliding or poor patient scores are things like, I guess what I would put into the category of staff inattention. Right. And I've seen that where hospitals, in order to address this, they implement something called hourly rounds, I guess, where it's, well, let's go ahead and make sure there's a touch point each hour. But it doesn't seem like that may be working as well as they thought it would. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, hourly rounding, Jack, is a great technique, and it's usually one of the first techniques that hospitals embrace to try to improve the patient's experience. And you have to keep in mind in the backdrop is a patient care unit, which is a business that's running in a very fast pace, and people are trying their best to get all the information and do everything for the patient. So the hourly rounding means that those staff members who are already very busy are going to commit to being some staff member being in front of the patient once an hour. And it's a wonderful strategy and technique. However, if the focus is not on looking at the root causes and the underlying reasons why staff are not able to be at the bedside, in other words, what kinds of processes that we have that are in place that are inefficient, if we don't take care of those root issues, it's very difficult to give the staff one more thing to do, even though that's exactly what they want to do. We have to help by really diving deep, removing those root inefficiencies to give them the freedom to do what it is that they're there to do.
And one of the things that jumps out at me is that who is it that's in charge of doing this? Who is it that is looking at putting it into place? Because to me, it looks like the people that are being put responsible for this or accountable for this are people that are in the medical field. They came up through the ranks of the medical field. They're medical, tacticians or technicians. Am I correct? Or is there somebody that is specialist in what this is?
Yeah, you have a great pulse on that, Jack. You're absolutely correct. What happens is that the nurse managers are the people that are the ones who will implement this, and it is much deeper than a technique or a tactic. It actually needs to be a culture change to keep it sustainable. So the nurse manager is a person who had been prior a very good clinician, was raised through the ranks, and came to the position of leading all of this change. And this is, quite honestly, something that we're not taught in nursing school.
I was just thinking that, you're talking about a nurse, a clinician, which you mean that this is someone that's gone up, they went to school to be a nurse, to help people and all the things that nurses do. And now all of a sudden they're put in a position of determining and affecting culture change. The culture of the hospital and the patient. And my next question is that something that's part of a nursing curriculum? Is that something that they're taught with this?
No, it's not. And therein lies the challenge. And it's not just even for the nursing department. It's for every department that supports nursing to create the patient experience. For example, pharmacists, the really great pharmacist is raised to the level of running the pharmacy. And once again, learning how to run the business aspect of a hospital is not something that we're taught when we're learning our particular specialties.
I guess to put an analogy, a great cook doesn't necessarily make a great restaurant manager. A great cook doesn't necessarily make a great restaurant owner, and that seems to be the role that they're put into. Now, I know, and I didn't mention this before, but you're kind of in a unique position that your background and your training, you're both a registered nurse, but you also hold an MBA, which probably gives you a pretty unique insight and background into both these to kind of marry these together, where a lot of hospitals probably don't have the luxury of having someone with both of those backgrounds. Do you see that this background of yours is what kind of gives you some insight or lets you be able to see clearly what a lot of hospitals and the staff that has been focused so much on the clinical side is missing with having these scores improve?
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. And that's where my passion lies, because I can see so clearly what needs to happen, and it needs to be a combination of skills in terms of leadership and management, things that we have never gifted our leaders with. So we're asking them to do these things which are very difficult for them to do, and they try their hardest, which is why we get some forward movement. But maintaining that momentum is what really is required, some leadership and some business skills. And that is the gift that I bring when I work with hospitals to help them to keep their scores sustainable.
Well, it is. And one of the reasons that I am thoroughly, thrilled that you came on to Influencers Radio with me, is that your influence, because of what you do and your background and the way that you look at this, is you're not only influencing hospitals and helping hospitals with their bottom line, but that influence is flowing through right down to the patient experience. So it's not just hospitals you're helping, but a wonderful, byproduct or extra big bonus and benefit of this is the patients are getting, having a better experience where they're clearly having a better experience because of these raised scores on this hospital, on the satisfaction, the patient satisfaction scores. And so as an influencer, one thing I always like to find out is what influences the influencer. What is it that drives you to do this and drives you to, and inspires you to work both on the behalf of the hospital, but also, incidentally and peripherally to the benefit of the patients as well?
Probably one of the biggest things for me, Jack, is when I'm walking around and I interview patients and I see a patient that says, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on here, but things are getting so much better. I've been a patient in this hospital before. Things are better. And that for me is the reason why I do what I do. Because every time, every single one of us is in front of a patient, in my mind, I always think this might be their last experience. So let's make sure it's a good one.
Yeah, I think that really is what makes you an influencer, because I want to put a spotlight on myself, is that ultimately what you're doing is helping patients. That's the bottom line. That's who's benefiting from this. And it's almost, I guess one of the reasons that this is happening is because money and reimbursement is tied to this, for the hospitals. Yeah. And, certainly it's no secret that there are a lot of people that aren't fans of hospital administration and billing and things like that. But that's not what you're about. That's not what this is about, is advocate and going to work for hospitals, which is what you do, and they benefit. And I know that you see things on the hospital sides that the public doesn't, that you're able to work with. But the fact that the bottom line is it flows through and that patient experience is so much better. And that's something that hospitals should ultimately be happy about, that this is in place to allow them to do a better job overall. I want to know, how can people find out more about what you do, especially people in the hospital administration business, people that are in the hospitals that are experiencing this backsliding in scores, and are looking for a way to stop it?
You can certainly reach out to me at the following website, www.boost, BOOST, patient experiences, plural with an S, .com. I would encourage anyone to go there, even if you're not in the hospital business, even if you want to see that this exists and that there's folks out there that are actually helping to better that hospital experience, and realize that there's actually metrics out there that hospital funding and reimbursement is tied directly to that metric. It's information that everybody should have and should know, because just about everybody that you run into at some point in their life is going to have a hospital visit, and it's nice to know what's going on behind the scenes in that as well. Eileen Campbell, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Influencers Radio today. You are certainly an influencer well beyond the first level of hospitals like we talked about. So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Jack. It has been my unique pleasure.
All right. Great. Folks, take a look at Eileen's site and really think about what is going on here. It's very, very powerful stuff. So until next time on Influencers Radio, I want you to remember, you are the only real game changer. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.